Ok, mis amigos audiófilos de habla hispana y de habla inglesa también. Hoy tengo a un invitado muy especial, a Kevin Rōnin. And Kevin is going to speak in English. Él va a hablar en inglés, pero cualquier pregunta que ustedes tengan, yo les voy a traducir. Y también tenemos el unboxing, el empaque de la bocina Celestion SL700 que están aquí. Estas bocinas yo no las he visto. Si ustedes conocen la historia, yo estuve en Vermont, en Burlington, Vermont, en una tienda donde fui a comprar discos. Y mientras estaba allí con mis sobrinos, vi las bocinas. Más o menos accidentalmente le tomé un video, pero decidí no estar interesado en ellas porque las bocinas, el woofer tenía una pequeña rajadura y yo dije, no, eso es mucho trabajo, nadie tiene los woofers no existen, así que ¿para qué voy a comprar esas bocinas? A pesar de que el precio era ridículo, $300 por un par de bocinas que valían, creo que $3,000, right? These speakers used to be like $3,000 new, something like that.
£1,500.
Ok. Así que cuando andaba de camino a casa, un patrón amigo mío me dijo, pero Pedro, esos woofers se pueden reparar. Y yo le dije, no se pueden reparar, no existen, no hay woofers. Pero me acordé de que tengo a mi amigo Kevin del canal Ditton Works. Si ustedes no conocen el canal Ditton Works, ahora mismo vayan y suscríbanse al canal Ditton Works de Kevin. Él es un experto en bocinas inglesas de la BBC. Él hace comparaciones de todo tipo de bocinas, Spendors, TDL, B&W, Celestion. Y la verdad que son fascinantes las pruebas que él hace. También él hace reviews de algunos productos electrónicos. Así que no se pierdan el canal Ditton Works. Pero ahora vamos a hablar en inglés. Esto es una entrevista. Cualquier pregunta que tengan también, por favor, la hacen. Y los superchats también están bienvenidos si quieren. ¿Ok? Bueno, ok, Kevin. That was my short introduction. How are you? How's your Spanish?
Bad.
Okay, that's okay. So this is going to be conducted in English. And many of our fans also here speak English, so you'll get a lot of questions. And so let's start from the beginning. As you know, I have this pair of Celestions that I actually have not inspected. We're gonna unbox them, and we're gonna look at the good or the bad news together. And I can always delete the video. and here's Dolly. Hey, Dolly. Dolly is waiting for a treat that will never arrive because I don't have any treats. Sorry, not here. Anyway, and so tell me about yourself. You used to work in Celestion.
That's correct. Right?
Yes. Manufacturer.
Yes. Yep. So on the crossover circuit boards and the HF units was what I worked on.
Was this sort of like an assembly line thing, or were you in a little department where you?
No, this would have been purely on the production line. I had big ideas to be in the research and development department, but that was all very secret stuff. I'm good friends with a lot of people who were in that department at the time. So yeah, a couple of my friends were pretty instrumental in the SL series.
So you told me, I think in the past, that one of your friends was one of the chief designers, and he came up with the Twitter design, or?
That's kind of right. So my friend Ed Form was the technical director. So he was right at the top, and the designers would have worked underneath him. And he is responsible for taking the copper tweeter, which was designed by Boaz Eli, which was very complicated to make. It was done by electroplating, which is a jewelry procedure, and it's very difficult to do, and the weight of the units fluctuated. So all of the copper variants, the crossovers, were tuned by hand. Ed discovered a way of manufacturing aluminium, which they could produce them more effectively, more efficiently, and aluminium's lighter than copper, so the HF unit was more efficient, made the overall efficiency better.
Also, probably copper with oxidation. Will copper suffer from? Wouldn't that change the mass of the if it gets, you know how it gets stained like a coin?
Yeah, copper can suffer with well, pure copper won't. It will tarnish. It ends up with patina is the term. So a lot of not all of the copper tweeters are very shiny anymore. Some of them are quite matte in their appearance. They're dull, but I've not found anything that shows that affects the performance, to be honest with you. And I've never seen any that have gone green yet, but it could happen.
However, they used to be maybe the generalization that the tweeters were a little bit dim sounding or a little bit too warm because it wasn't as efficient as the aluminum dome. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Celestion developed the first commercially used metal dome tweeter in a hi-fi speaker. There were other metal dome tweeters, I think, before that, but this was, commercially produced. And because copper's quite heavy, it did make them less efficient. And the bass driver had to be made less efficient as well, which gave them an overall sensitivity of 82 decibels, which is really low. Yeah. That's pretty appalling by today's standards.
But in those days, it didn't matter because people were listening to Apogees, to BMW 801s, 802s, so everything was inefficient. I mean, that was the golden age of the super amps.
Yeah. So big power amps were starting to surface. I mean, it's quite interesting that Celestion's demonstration room for the SL600 used two C Audio 1000-watt PA amplifiers that were monster amplifiers, but it sounded phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
At the time, which UK company was, maybe Cord was making big amps like that? What company was making huge amps like that?
That's not exactly around that. Quad would have made some
big amps.
Yeah. Meridian were starting to make big amps. Audio Lab had some good amplifiers. Interestingly, the service department used Audio Lab's amplifiers at Celestion. But by the time your ones were developed, they were using Krell KSA 100s, so big, beefy Krell amplifiers.
Yeah, one of my favorites is the KSA 150. That was an amazing amplifier.
Yeah.
And Peter Comio, who I had here a couple of weeks ago, told me that he used the Audio Lab in the development of the Lintons. Also, one of the amps. He also used the Quad Artera, which I believe you have.
I've got the Quad Artera preamp. Yes, I have. Yeah. The Audio Lab's a really nice sounding amplifier. The 8000 series from a long time ago is a very good amplifier. It would be a good amplifier to voice loudspeakers too, particularly if you're trying to get that vintage sound, which the Lintons emulate well.
Yeah, I have yet to try them. I always liked, while the Japanese were fighting for the super receiver in the late 70s and the 80s, the late 70s, because the 80s became the black plastic plate.
Yeah.
But the British always had the low power integrated amps that just sounded phenomenal. I mean, there's nothing better than a Creek or a Rotel, a 15 watt per channel Rotel. I mean, that kind of stuff. It's like my Miata, my convertible. You can use all of the power all of the time.
Yeah.
And you never have to destroy anything with it. It just sounds great at full power.
So that's a Mazda MX-5 over here. Is yours Miata? Yeah, they're great.
Mine is a Fiat, but it's made by Mazda. So basically, I call it a Miata because people get confused. Yeah.
I often find that car analogies work well with hi-fi. You know, you're quite right that you've got a very nimble sports car that you can use all of the time. And it's very true with some of the lower powered amplifiers that the only trouble is, although they will work an inefficient speaker, you won't get the most out of them.
Yeah.
You really need a good gutsy amplifier because they'll draw so much current.
Yeah, and if we are in the subject of Celestion, then we must keep talking about powerful amps. I guess.
I mean, the impedance dips on SL series are pretty torturous. So I ran my SL 700 SEs on 2A3 single-ended triode amplifiers. So they'll work on low-powered amps, but it was a very near-field setup. You didn't get any of the real huge dynamic swing. It just wasn't possible. So they'll work, but you won't get the most out of them. You need power.
Wow. So when you started working at Celestion, were they still making these? Because you're quite young, so you know.
Oh yeah. I actually did work experience. Do you have that over there? It's where you go for 2 weeks while you're at school. You go to a workplace for 2 weeks.
No, I mean I don't know.
Okay, so over here, when you're at high school, for 2 weeks they send you out into the world of work to give you some experience.
I think that's called maybe vocational school or something. But I went to music school, which is a total disaster. It kills people. It destroys them. Yeah, conservatory.
Well, I went to Celestion because from the age of 11, I'd always been interested in loudspeakers. I'd quickly discovered that if you unplugged a pair of speakers and put a different pair in, it sounded different straight away. So I demanded to go to Celestion. And when I was there, I was just fascinated by the place. It was just incredible. There was just speakers being made, all kinds of stuff. And when I left school, I just wanted to go and work there. So from 17, I went straight there.
Wow. And that's your friend, the technical director. How did you...
that's an interesting story. So Ed was the technical director in about 1982, about 84 to about 87.
Yeah.
So he'd been gone several years by the time I started there.
Oh, okay.
And I found Ed actually to this incredibly long post that he'd put on a hi-fi forum, basically correcting somebody where they'd got it all wrong. And I thought, wow, this guy really knows his Celestion. He really does.
Oh.
And there was, at the time, hardly any reference to Ed Form, which is really bad because he's been in and out of the audio industry for a long time. He worked at Tannoy. He worked at H&H Acoustics. He was friends with Peter Keeley. You know, the names he can rattle off that he's worked with or met is enormous. So I replied to this thread, and that, I think it was from maybe 10 years ago, and his email address was much the same. So he replied, and we had a long chat. I met him, and I've bombarded him with questions ever since.
Oh, that's great. So because of this, and also because when you were younger, how come that you got so excited about speakers? Were your parents or any relatives involved in the audio industry, or?
No, not really. My mum's brother, my uncle, had a Technics silver stack system, which I found very impressive as a child. My grandmother liked classical music. My dad played guitar and was in a folk band, so I was always surrounded by music. But I did a video on this, my first system, and my first thing was a record player, just a portable record player. And it was through that I realized if I got rid of the plastic basic speakers and put a proper box speaker in, a cabinet speaker, they were just way better. And from 11 to today, I've been playing about with loudspeakers.
Oh, that's fantastic. How many is your wife around? I mean, how many speakers How many speakers do you have today that you're allowed to divulge this
Well,
information?
in this house,
You have to specify in this house. How many
maybe
houses do you have?
there's probably about 6 or 8 pairs in here. Yeah, I mean, some of the higher end ones I've kept here to switch around that are very helpful if I'm doing a review on something, or if I'm just curious. Most recently, I wanted to answer the question of the battle between Spendor and Harbeth. So I got a set of Harbeths to answer that. That's the only way.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah. And I needed to do it to find the answer. I had to know, because it's great to go into to go to hi-fi shows, to go to your local hi-fi shop. I encourage you should all do this, but you won't really know until you've got them at home in your own system with your own music. And I mean, I can identify the sonic characteristics of a loudspeaker with very quickly, sometimes in a matter of seconds, that you can just tell straight away. But to really, really know if it's something you want, you need to live with it for a long time, many hours. And that will also give you an answer. That if you've lived with it for hours, you're able to listen to it for hours, probably means it's a speaker you like. If it's something you're turning down very, very quickly and not enjoying, then that's not for you.
Okay, that sounds like a plausible situation.
Yeah,
right? I mean, to deal with.
Yeah. So about 6 or 8 pairs, but in total, I wouldn't publicly admit that.
I don't feel so bad now. I try to get rid of my stuff. I keep trying to get,
Here's a question for you. Is there a pair of speakers that you got rid of that you wished you hadn't?
All the time. In fact, I have those EPOS ES11 there that...
Oh, that's Robin Marshall, yeah.
Actually, that's a sad story. My sister, I was playing in an orchestra in Mexico, and my sister stayed in my apartment in New York, and her boyfriend told her that the speakers didn't work.
Right.
She threw them in the garbage.
No, you're joking.
I had another pair. Yeah, they were walnut, and because they had a by wiring post, her boyfriend didn't know anything about hi-fi. Right. So I guess he thought the tweeters were dead. I don't know. He didn't know how to connect them.
He didn't buy wiring.
So they threw my speak. I still, once in a while, if I even make a hint of reminding her, she stopped talking to me for years. So I can't even complain about it. And also I had Meridian M20s in the past. I regret. I don't know. I mean, I regret a lot of speakers that I used to have. I even had a pair of Haybrooks that were really nice. It was like the typical formula. It was like a light box that it sounded kind of hollow.
Yeah, lossy cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big. We should talk about that. That's a big British thing. The sound of the cabinet is important. But yeah, I miss the 801s. I used to have 801s.
Bowers and Wilkins?
Yeah, the Matrix.
Yeah.
Matrix 2, the ones that were...
So that's Lawrence Dickey. He came up with the Matrix concept shortly after Celestion did the Aerolam. There's an interview somewhere where Lawrence Dickey is very... what's the best way of putting that? Not jealous, but respectful admiration. Why didn't I think of doing that? Because it was revolutionary. It was very, very clever. Hugely difficult to make. And Celestion continued making very difficult to make loudspeakers. We can go into that in depth in a little while. But the BBC lossy cabinet thing is really down to a couple of people. I would credit Dudley Harwood big time with that. He was right at the top of acoustic design. And Dudley Harwood obviously founded Harbeth. One of the other famous people at the BBC is obviously Spencer Hughes, who went on to found Spendor.
Spendors, yeah.
These guys were true, what they call golden ears. They could just tell. There's lots of people who, you know, I can't mention all of them, but lots of people at the BBC were very, very clever people.
But amongst these people, I wanted to ask you, because in Russia, they had the big five composers. And then in France, they had Les Six, you know, they had the big six composers that everybody,
Right.
you know, the music was very successful. So there must be like a group of 3 or 4 or 5 designers that are...
Probably world famous British designers would be Kelly, Peter Walker.
Yes!
Yeah, definitely.
We need to hear the angelical choir. I can hear it whenever you say Peter Walker. I hear the angels singing.
I would say Spencer Hughes, definitely. I mean, he made that first cone for the BC1 using a bedpost, a heater, and a compressor working backwards to vacuum form it. I mean, that's very clever.
That's the Beck string? Is that the Beck string?
Yeah, for the BC1, yeah. I mean, there's lots. Stuart Tyler of Proac. Loads.
And Kev?
Kev would originally be, so Malcolm Jones was very clever drive unit guy. So he did the B110, the T27, I think the B200, the B139. Obviously, Laurie Fincham worked for Kev, very famous. In more recent years would be Andrew Jones. A lot of people would have heard of Andrew Jones.
No, but I met an old man at Kev. What was his? You haven't mentioned his name yet.
So Raymond Cook was Kev's founder. Yeah,
I met him once at a CES in Chicago in 1991 or 92.
Wow.
And I told him, I just graduated from Juilliard, and I told him that I played the oboe. It turns out he was married to the daughter of a famous composer, a famous oboist, but his brother was also a composer. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, so he told me that his estate they were gonna sell. You can actually see the fluff in the air from my
from
dog.
the dogs.
Yeah, they were gonna sell his instruments on an auction. And so when I got home, I was in Puerto Rico at the time, and he wrote me a very nice letter. I still have it somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, he was a very nice man, and he was very impressed that I played the oboe, and that I will remember the name of the composer. But anyway, he wrote an oboe concerto for his brother. So he was married. Raymond Cook was married to the daughter of this.
Wow.
Yeah, of this oboist.
Ed told me that Raymond Cook was quite a showman when it came to displaying his speakers at the hi-fi shows, that he was something that is probably missing now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, the last hi-fi show I went to, the Kef guys were very good, but according to Ed, that Mr. Cook was just very flamboyant, very, very interactive, and made it a nice experience.
Yeah. And I also met the people at TDL, also the old man at TDL at the show. And I remember seeing these great speakers that I've never heard of ever again. Ruark.
Oh, yeah. That's O'Rourke. Yeah.
They were beautiful speakers, but
yeah,
I don't know anyone that owns them or had them, or they were expensive. And I think they went together with the Roxanne. Maybe same distribution or something. I don't know.
Possibly. I don't know that, but Ruark were highly regarded. They're really good. I mean, there's lots of loudspeakers that fall through the net. I mean, Royd is another one that are really, really good. Ram is another one from Britain that's really
never
good.
Heard.
No, they just fall through the net. Very small, but very good manufacturer of loudspeakers. This is kind of why I like some of the history, particularly Celestion's history, but some of the history attached to it, because you do find that this all sort of filters out, if you like. The hi-fi community is quite small, but when you trace it back, it's fascinating stuff. The same as any history is, really, but the loudspeaker one is really interesting.
But it's quite a departure for the Celestion Aerolamp cabinet, because it all came from the LS5, LS3, this group of people that developed the BBC monitors, and then they kind of split, right? And they all went into their own companies, like Stuart Tyler and
so Stuart Tyler is Celef, and then which is Celestion and Kef, because he used both companies' drive units in his early stuff. And then Celef became Proac, which is very famous, but still Stuart Tyler, who we sadly lost last year.
Yes.
So the BBC concept is a thin wall, lively cabinet that's damped with bitumen panels. So the energy is absorbed by the panels, turning it into heat. By the time the SL6 was in development, which would have probably been the late 70s into the early 80s, the lossy cabinet idea was starting to be phased out by the Celestion engineers. They thought the way forward was rigidity.
This is because they were using the laser interferometry, right?
So the laser interferometry helps with the true pistonic motion of the drive units. So Celestion had really focused on drive unit behavior, and they were trying to push the breakup modes out of the audible range. So the drive units could travel further up the frequency range, so you could cross them over well within tolerance, or the HF unit would break up way out of the audible range. The only trouble is you get that all right, but then you need to get the cabinet right. And the SL6 cabinet, although dimensions are lovely, it's not a big speaker, that's got an awful resonance at about 400 hertz, which is starting to get into the mid-band area, the very low mid-band area. So
does that include, I keep interrupting you, I'm sorry. Does that include the SI, the SL6 SI, or not?
That comes later. So the first loudspeaker is the SL6.
With the copper tweeter.
Yes. And that's the first Cobex driver with PVC surround. The chassis is actually from another Celestion loudspeaker called the UL6, which is late 70s design. So basically they kind of used up some components they already had, but made them better. But the cabinet is very coloured at 400 hertz. Very, very coloured. It becomes very light.
Okay.
So to improve on that, Graham Bank started using material that British Aerospace used in the floors of aeroplanes. And the material is called Aerolam.
Okay. Here I'm gonna make a little break here, because this plays into a joke that we do here all the time, in which I call the experts the NASA scientists, and with reason, because as you can see the logo on my cup, it has a NASA.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody gets really smart or get very technical, I call them the NASA scientists. But the reason is because a lot of these guys came from the aeronautics and the aerospace industry. Am I right?
That's true to a degree. You've got several aspects going on in design. You'd obviously have acoustic design. You'd have chemical analysis. So there'll be chemists who are working on different materials, different rubbers, electrical engineers. There's a whole array of people working, together to get the end result. So Graham Bank discovering
Was he a NASA scientist too? Was he an aerospace guy?
No, Graham Bank was, I think he had a PhD in acoustics, but Graham Bank was a loudspeaker designer.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically turned the SL6 into the SL6 by using the Aerolam cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
This gets really complicated here, right? Because the Aerolam cabinet is absolutely rigid as anything, incredibly stiff, right?
So it does not contribute to the music at all. And in fact, that 400 hertz band probably is what people liked, or misunderstood as a great mid-range sound.
100%. That's coloration. It's the same as
Yeah.
the difference between valve amplifiers and solid state amplifiers. It could be argued that the valve amplification is distortion, but if it's pleasant distortion, it doesn't matter. If it's horrible distortion, your ears soon tell your brain this is horrible. So coloration at 400 hertz wasn't a problem on the SL6, but to Graham Bank it was. He wanted to get rid of it.
Of course.
So he pushed that out of the audible band by using Aerolam. The trouble is, the first cabinets were made by a company that were on an airfield. Makes sense. It was aerospace material in a place called Duxford, which was an airfield. And the first cabinets were actually not that well made. So they had a bit of flexibility. And the demo pairs sounded phenomenal. When it went into production, or started to go into production, they were too well made. They were so stiff.
The tolerances got tighter. Yeah.
Yep. That they ended up with what's called a bell mode issue. Now, do you know who Martin Collins is?
Yes, he was a reviewer at the Hi-Fi Review and Weather Report.
100%.
Something
Clever
like
bloke. Got written
Hi-Fi Review and Record Report, or Record.
Yep.
Martin
Collins has written many books on loudspeaker designs. He worked for Monitor Audio. I think he was their first designer, actually. Martin Collins takes an empty Aerolam cabinet up to my friend Ed and says, Ed, listen to this. And he holds it close to his ear, wraps his knuckles on the cabinet, and it absolutely rings like mad and hurts Ed's ears. And Ed said, that's a bell mode, meaning that it's ringing around the cabinet. Because it's made out of metal, it rings.
But if it's square shape, it doesn't have any, it's still, because of the volume of air that's inside, it resonates.
Yeah, so this is an empty cabinet, no drive units, no phone, no water, but it's still got a bell mode, which is causing a horrible characteristic in the mid-band. Graham Bank had left Celestion now to go to Wharfdale. So this became Ed's problem. And Ed, weirdly, using other people outside of Celestion's group of clever people, worked out that the best thing to do was what they called crack the bell. So if you crack a bell, if a bell's got, it won't ring. It won't ring anymore. So on the bottom right-hand seam, the cabinet is not glued together with traditional glue. It's like a silicon stuff, so it can flex. Kills the bell mode. Bell mode problem gone.
In only one place of the cabinet?
Yep, exactly, yep.
So when we unbox my speakers, they're probably just open. They're probably, with time, they might have...
No, you'll never break open those Aerolam cabinets. They're stiff as anything. But if you took one apart, when you looked inside the cabinet, the bottom right-hand seam will be white because it's silicon holding it together. It's just so it's got a bit of flexibility. Now, doing that rectified the bell mode issue, and then they realized just how good the SL600 was.
Now, I just want to track back a little bit.
Go ahead.
The laser interferometry was, in the beginning, utilized to deal with to achieve pistonic motions in the drivers. It had nothing to do with the boxes. But then the drivers got so good that got ahead of the box, and then the box was kind of lagging behind.
Yep.
I see.
So Graham realized that the next issue in the chain of things was the cabinet, which is not too dissimilar to what the BBC discovered, that the cabinet is a very important part of the overall system. It's just the BBC's philosophy was to use a lossy cabinet and damp out the resonant frequencies.
Right.
Celestion's approach was to make the cabinet as stiff as humanly possible. Now, that does have and can have some disastrous results. Some very, very stiff, rigid cabinets become sonically dead, and it wrecks the musicality of the loudspeaker.
It sucks the life out of it, and also it makes it more inefficient, especially if it's not a vented unit.
Yeah, so a sealed enclosure is nearly always less efficient. You can gain several dB by it being ported.
And also, if it doesn't resonate, that's even more dead.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, but
it contributes
it's
less to the sound.
yes, that's right. So you did ask about the SI. I think you've got a pair, haven't you?
Actually, I just sold those speakers to one of my patrons, and I regret it.
Oh dear. Well, you've got better ones now.
Well, this was a question he had actually here. He said, "Why are the 700s better than the ones I have?" And then he has an angry face on it. Are they really better?
Basically, okay. So just quickly, after the SL6, after the SL6 comes the 600, but the
Right.
600 is expensive. It's a lot of money. Ed has then developed the aluminium tweeter. So Celestion developed the SL6S, which is the wooden one with the aluminium tweeter and the first dual material surround, which was to help reduce standing waves at the edge of the cone and various things. It was an improvement.
So it was, just to specify, the dual material was on the woofer. The woofer it doesn't have just foam or just butyl rubber. It has two components, and that's why they're impossible to fix, basically, or
Yes,
replace.
so it's PVC is the first leading edge, which is
Inside.
the same. Yeah, which is the same as the original one, and then it splits into rubber. So part of it, to keep the pistonic motion, the PVC travels very pistonically. Then the rubber allows more extension.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so the drive unit has also got a different shape, a different length bobbin, and a different coil winding. All of that has to be modified. It's got a different chassis as well. What they did to rectify the 400 hertz issue in the cabinet is they put what Celestion called a figure-of-8 brace, which braced up the cabinet and made it much stiffer. It pushes that resonance further out of the audible band. Your friend's SI are the next version on from that, which are the same drive units, the same cabinet, but they used polycaps in the crossover. So the topography is slightly different on the crossover, but it's got polycaps in it. I actually like them the least. I think they're hard in the mid-range compared to the S.
The SI?
The SI, yeah. I think
this is why you have a project where you're gonna you're modifying them.
I have, yeah. It's taken far too long, but I've been busy, so I haven't managed to get back to it yet. But I aim to have them finished this year. They're nearly done. The trouble is, you can't really improve on what Celestion already did using their components, because some of the best minds that worked there worked on these. So all I tried to do was make the best version of the wooden cabinet one. So my cabinets are wooden, not Aerolam. Right. I've used the wooden cabinets, and I've used drive units that have never been put into the wooden cabinets. They're actually the drive units from your speakers, and I've modified the crossover topography and gone really as high end as I could on components. Not ridiculous, but I've gone for air core inductors, better capacitors. But strangely, I've stuck with L-caps on the bass circuit because I find polycaps make the mid-range too hard.
But so people know they could maybe buy a kit from you in the future, or buy the crossovers from you.
Possibly. That would be a long way down the road. That would be. I've got to get it right for me before I would even entertain doing it for somebody else. Go on.
Are you presently working in the hi-fi industry?
No. Okay. I do this purely for fun. My job is selling bikes, push bikes, high-end racing bikes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah, that's very nice.
But it pays the bills and feeds the habit.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of, a lot of the people that we have here, they don't speak English. So they're actually kind of talking amongst each other, and they might be getting a little bored. So why don't we just do the unboxing now, and then we can continue to talk about them, especially if it's really good or really bad.
Sure, definitely. No worries.
Ok, mi gente, vamos a hacer el unboxing porque veo que algunos de ustedes que no hablan inglés, pues está un poco aburrido. Así que vamos a hacer el unboxing. A ver qué pasa. No sabemos. Yo no inspeccioné esta bocina. Yo no sé en qué estado están. Así que I'm gonna take my headphones off. So if you speak, I won't hear you, but I'll turn the volume up just in case you say something. Okay. Here we go. Good luck. Okay. Oh, let me change cameras. I charge my camera so I can use a wider angle lens. Let's see. Camera. Are we on? This is my Lumix. Okay. Wide angle. Okay. I think we're good. But I should lower it so we can see the box a little more. Okay. All right, here we go. Got the razor blade. You're welcome to make comments while I do this.
Sure. There is one thing that is missing, unfortunately, from yours is the dedicated stands.
Yes.
I will work on trying to source you a pair. I know where a pair are, but it's whether the guy wants to get rid of them or not. I'll ask him.
You don't think that this will work?
They will work, but you'll find there'll be a sonic benefit if they are on the proper stands.
What is the material of the dedicated stands? Is it magnesium?
I think they're aluminium. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're aluminium.
Okay, the packaging looks good.
Good.
They're bubble wrap.
Now, the strange thing with Aerolam is it's really quite strong in the sense of if you stood on those, they would handle your weight. But if you dropped something onto the cabinets, they would dent very easily. It's a strange material.
I've seen pictures of them with holes in them, like somebody punched a hole through them.
Yeah. Very easily damaged.
Well, nice and bubble wrap.
Yeah, they've done a good job.
All right, let's see. What do we have? Also, I gotta be careful with the razor blade, right?
Yeah, be careful with that. That will scratch the Nextel paint quite easily.
It would be very easy to slice it with a razor blade too. I don't know if you see the comments, if there's questions here. Do you see questions?
Let me see if I can see them.
I think somebody asked the difference between the late 60s. Do you remember the red driver speakers? I don't know what that, Serwin Vega? No.
What, with the red or orange surrounds? That was Serwin Vega, yeah.
Yeah.
The only other ones I can think of in UK would have been a company called Richard Allen. They had red surrounds, but it was concertina, not foam. They're pretty rare. They turn up every now and again. You probably never heard of Richard Allen speakers. They're another one that.
No.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, JPW. Do you remember the red drivered speaker JPW? Red one. No, I don't. I don't. Interesting story about JPW. The labour, so the assembly of the cabinets, was done by prisoners, inmates.
Really?
Yeah, cheap labour. So prisoners were assembling the loudspeakers. In the early days, I believe that's true. But JPW, I can't remember that one.
I wouldn't mind doing that as a prisoner rather than construction work, much better.
JPW actually had the license for LS35As as well, but it's debatable whether they ever actually made any.
Okay. They did a good job here. They surrounded the square-shaped thing. And actually, they use painter's tape, so I don't even have to use the razor blade.
All right, good. If people, do you know people often use sellotape on bubble wrap, and it's just impossible to get it off.
Okay, here we go. We're getting there.
I'll be surprised if yours have got this in there.
They're also individually
This
wrapped.
came with every pair. Say again.
Oh, I said they're individually wrapped, but I want to see what you're showing me.
It's a ribbon.
Oh, what's that for?
Every pair of special editions came with a ribbon, a certificate, the frequency plots. So each one had the frequency plots. I haven't got one to hand at the minute, but I've got loads of them still.
Okay, here we go. We're getting there. It's a little noisy. Now, we are not certain that these are special editions. I was told, but we're going to have to check, right?
There's only one way to find out. There is only one way to find out, and you'll need an Allen key to remove 4 bolts, and then all will be revealed.
Oh.
So just quickly, there's a common mistake. A lot of people say that the SL series, the 700, was actually called the Celestion 700, and the special edition was called the SL 700 SE. The marketing department, for some reason, decided that the 700 should just be called the Celestion 700.
I'm listening.
Celestion's 100 years old. In 2 years' time, it's 100 years old.
That I knew. I knew they're a very old speaker company.
Started by Cyril French in 1924.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right at the beginning of RCA. I mean, a little after RCA.
Yeah. I spoke to Cyril French's, must have been his great-grandson, several years ago, and he showed me, he had some of the original adverts from the 1930s, which were hand-painted.
Okay, I see something here.
Right. You're nearly there. I can see grey Nextel paint.
The back is seems okay.
Yep.
No big holes or dents anywhere.
That's good. So both the Celestion 700 and the SL 700 SE were bi-wireable.
Now, they did have some 800s after that, or not?
No.
No.
So at the end of the SL range, you had the Celestion 100, the Celestion 300, and then the flagship, very rare, Celestion King.
Okay.
Here we go. That looks familiar.
Drum roll. They're very well packed. And they have feet in the bottom. They have rubber feet.
Now, that is the cups for the proper stands.
Oh, yeah. They're not rubber.
No, part of the cabinet.
Okay.
So on the
bottom seems good.
On the bottom, you'll see that there's 3 cup with for a cone to sit in, and then there's 2 bolt holes.
Okay.
So the original stands bolted to the bottom of that loudspeaker.
Okay. Okay. It has 4 corners. There's a little bit of chaffing here and there, but what can you...
That's fine. That's fine. Hey, I haven't seen a pair for 2 years. I had a pair about 2 years ago. Before that, I had a pair for 20 years.
This one has a little dent here.
That's okay. It's not pierced it. It's not punctured it.
Yeah.
You can live with that. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, on the bottom, you've got those 3 inverted cones.
Right.
And then you've got 2 threads where you bolted the stands to the speaker. That's why it's important to have them.
Ah.
It will work. It will be absolutely fine. But the proper stands were matched to the speakers.
Now let's see if we can see what's going on with the driver, with the woofer, which we know it's a little bit cracked.
Were both of them cracked or just one?
Yeah, I think pretty much both. But let's.
Right.
It's not falling apart. It just has some cracks.
No.
But it's not.
What happens is ultraviolet radiation sets off a chemical reaction between the PVC and the rubber, and the PVC is okay. The rubber splits. I will help you fix those. No problems.
Wow, that's amazing. We're gonna make a nice video about this, I guess.
Yeah. Are the tweeters okay? No dents, no damage?
Let me put my glasses on. They seem fine, and the protector is fine too. At least this one. We'll have to see the next speaker.
Right.
This is my cartridge collection. Some of them.
I haven't got as many as that.
I like cartridges. Steve Gothenberg interviewed me twice, and on the first one, I show him also. I got him into that now. He got a Technics so he can play with cartridges.
All right.
You have a Technics too, right?
I have an SL 1210 Mark II from 2005, yep.
Okay, great. That's what I used to have, a Mark II.
Yep.
Somebody is asking a question. What current production British style monitor is compatible with a 300B single-ended amp? Huh.
Okay, a 300B is more powerful than a 2A3, which is what I had. I mean, LS35As would be tremendous, although they're higher impedance. Nothing's going to be loud, but it's going to sound good. It will sound good. 300Bs are very, very nice.
Oh! Ow! There's carpet. There's carpet. I dropped it a little bit, but there's carpet.
Oh my God. They'll survive that. They're tough in a certain way.
And also it fell on the front face, which has the hex bolts. No, but it fell on the bottom part of the... It's okay. It's plywood floor. It's very soft, bouncy floor. So far, in Spanish, we have it saying, tanto nadar para morir en la orilla. So much swimming, and then you die at the end.
Yeah, to answer your friend's question, 300B single-ended, you really want something that's quite efficient. So if it's got a higher efficiency, you'll be able to get a fair amount of volume out of it. But 300Bs are beautiful sounding tubes. You know, I would personally I would probably go LS35As. That would be my call for that. Sound phenomenal. I
saw a video where you drove a pair of these with your 2A3 amp, I think. Yep. I even commented on it.
Yeah. It will power them, but you just won't get the big swings in dynamic range, and it won't fill a big room. It just won't.
You're a big fan of the LS35A, huh?
Oh, I love LS35As.
Yeah. They're magical.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
First time I heard them, a friend of mine who we lost recently, also a trumpet player in the orchestra in Galicia, in La Coruña, in Spain. In his apartment, he had a pair just on the bookshelf, with books, and he had a Cyrus, the original Cyrus integrated amp, and he was just playing some piano music, and I could not believe the sound that came out of that thing.
They're unbelievable.
He wasn't hot dogging, he wasn't like, trying to show off, or they were on shelves. They were not even on stands.
Nope.
But the sound that came out was so realistic.
Yep. I mean, they were designed to be used in the back of vans. So there'd be a little mobile studio van. So they'll work anywhere really. I love LS35As. I think they are a truly wonderful loudspeaker.
Well, my EPOS ES11s also, they come with covers. Instead of grills, they come with plastic covers. I guess they're trying to sell them as band speakers too.
Yeah, they're Robin Marshall designed. Robin Marshall was inspired by Boaz Eli, who designed Celestion's copper tweeter. There's a lot of people who think he sort of copied Celestion realistically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Speaker number 2. Bottom seems okay. They're very well packed.
Yeah.
The side is okay. You can see the honeycomb a little bit. Like the pattern, a little bit in there.
All right. You shouldn't be able to, because that's a fairly thick piece of aluminium around there.
Well,
you might be able to.
Okay. This one is in better shape.
Yeah.
Before I drop it.
They're very rare. We didn't make many of them.
Okay, the tweeter seems fine, and the woofer only has 2 cracks.
Right.
But look at this. I don't know. What do you think? What do you see on this one, Kevin?
Oh, the grill is wrong. The faceplate is the wrong way round.
Oh.
Yeah, that means. Yeah, somebody's taken that off. Have you got a set of Allen keys nearby?
Of course I do.
Brilliant. If you remove that faceplate, this will be the big reveal whether they are Celestion 700 or SL700 SE.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna test your knowledge now. I'm gonna ask you what number hex key do I need.
I think it's a 5.
All right. Are they SAE or millimeter, right? Millimeter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to CVS. Do you need anything?
I'm good. Thanks, honey.
Okay,
bye. Bye.
So what I'll do, if they're SEs, I'll hold this up. And I will post this to you. If they're not, you've still got a very good pair of loudspeakers.
I'll have to buy from you then.
Right? Yeah. Now there is some advantage to them not being special editions. I'll explain that when we've had a look.
Yeah. Okay, so 4.5 is not either. I think maybe a 4.
Should be a 5. I'm sure they're a 5 mil.
Well, in this case, they're a 4, but this is millimeter. Then there's star.
They're definitely not Torx. They're definitely an Allen key.
There's also SAE, SAE.
Okay.
But I
maybe
got
it's
the
a 4. Give
so
it. Get them. Okay.
So let's find out. So far, so good. Let's see. Do we get the camera, action camera? Any more questions? Here's my friend says, a good oboist always has all the right tools.
Now, the reason I didn't know what number it was, because when I open my Allen keys, there's only one that's gone shiny on the end, and that's the one to remove the SL faceplate.
Oh. Would you know anything by the serial number or not?
No, it's impossible to tell. There's only one way to tell.
Uh-oh, I'm getting nervous now. Well, they're not very tight. That's a good thing.
No, I think somebody's opened that up. That faceplate would not have been wrong from the factory.
Why is this removable? Is the crossover here?
No. The Celestion 700 and the SL700 SE had a lower faceplate to increase rigidity on the front baffle. And the only way to attach it was to bolt it on.
Oh, so it's not cosmetical. It actually has a...
It does add some aesthetics. The cabinet looks more finished with that.
Yeah.
I had to get...
like a monocoque chassis kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I had to get some made for mine. I got mine 3D printed. It's not easy to see on the video, but mine say SL6 SE, which never existed. They're my own pair.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, will I be able to try this with my...
It should. There you go.
I did, yes.
That's all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, this is metal.
Yep.
Casting.
Yep, they were cast faceplates in a company just down the road from where I live in Woodbridge.
They could have done plastic.
Could have done.
But no, they decided to go metal.
Yep.
Wow, kudos to them.
Okay, moment of truth. Hold that up to the camera.
Oh, now I need a different...
Now I can tell from there. I'll bring it just a tad closer. Those are
They're not.
Celestion SL. No, they're 700s. So they're not.
No!
It doesn't matter. I'll tell you why. The advantage is the SL700 SE had unique bass drivers and unique tweeters. The Celestion 700 uses the same bass driver as the SL6S and SI.
Oh, so it can be repaired easier.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe
Now,
I can show here so people can see what we mean, what you mean when you talk about the double surround.
Yeah, that's a dual material surround. Now, the way you identify the difference between the 700 and the SE is your Allen screws are chamfered and countersunk into the basket. On the SE, they weren't. They were Phillips screw heads on a flat chassis.
Ah.
I wouldn't take that as bad news, to be honest with you, because they're both very good, but one of them's a lot more fixable than the other.
So this is more serviceable. However, the SC has more bass, right?
It does indeed. I suppose what we could do, it would take a little bit of work, but we could turn those into special edition ones.
You can?
But you can. You'd need to find the bass drivers. They're not very common. It would be hard. And what I would really rather do is keep those in spec the way they were meant to be.
I'm okay with... Listen, I have quads. I'm used to not listening to bass all the time.
I wouldn't take that out yet, not the bass driver.
Oh, no?
Nah, there's no need. That is 100% a Celestion 700.
All right, because you told me that there was the gap in the...
Yeah, yeah. The only other thing you could do is put that the right way round now.
Yes.
The only other thing you could do is remove the grill off the other one just to check if they're the same. But do that in your... Yeah.
Maybe this was replaced with a different woofer.
Possibly, yes.
Because the plate was put in wrong, they maybe used the SL6 woofer.
Yep, possibly.
That would explain. But then I have a mismatch. Well, it's okay. Bass doesn't matter so much.
The only trouble is then we'd have to try and work out. I'd have to see the crossovers then to see which was which, because the crossover on the 700 is slightly different to the 700 SE, but I would need to see that pretty detailed to know.
You can probably adjust it by, you can adjust it in the crossover, whatever the mismatch is, but you have to listen and test.
It would be difficult. So an interesting fact, the crossovers in both of those and the 700 SE are not mounted to anything. They float inside the foam.
What?
Yep, they're not screwed to the cabinet. They float in the foam.
Are they protected by some foam surround or not?
So you've got panels of foam at the back of the cabinet that jam them into place. Celestion did that twice. They did that on the Celestion A2 as well. That's got a floating crossover. The idea being that it didn't interfere with the sound waves inside the cabinet. They were always trying something. Okay,
the moment of truth. And so this one only appears to have one. No, it has two cracks. It has a few. They're emerging.
Yeah. It's really strange. I mean, I had mine for 20 plus years and they never cracked, but mine were never in sunlight. And I pretty much worked out it's UV that causes the problem, because there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's strange. Right, don't pull that too hard. That's it. You want to lift it up rather than to you.
Right, maybe I'll stop it with this.
Yeah, it's probably stuck. Yeah, that's not been removed. So what's happened there is the paint is stuck it together. I would be careful removing that. It might I would say that's never been apart.
Let me just try from here, just from the hole, maybe.
Have you got plastic, something plastic?
Yeah, like a credit card kind of thing.
Yeah, it would probably need to be a bit stronger than that. So if you go in between the slot, that's it, and then twist it, it might come up. You might have to work around it. No, it's not uncommon.
I heard a click. I heard a click.
Yeah. Okay, work your way around.
It's working. I hear the sound of paint becoming peeled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Peeling paint. No, I got it.
There we go. That's never been apart, that one. And that's also a 700. I can see it from here.
Really?
So they're matched pair. That's how they should be. Yeah. What I'll do, I'll still send you this.
Consolation prize. You promised, so now I have to. Yeah. Why is the woofer installed this way? I'm sure there's a sonic reason why.
That's interesting. So the original SL6 was just a round chassis. The faceplate holds it in place. Boothroyd designed the look of the SL series.
Really? No wonder I like him so much.
Yep.
I like his stuff.
Now, to keep the look all the same, they had to mount the driver offset so the faceplates would fit back on.
You could, okay.
Yeah.
And this basket looks pretty heavy duty too.
Yeah, cast aluminium. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Heavy. Yes, good quality. So the cone material is Cobex, which is basically a plastic. You'll notice that the cone and the dust dome are all one piece. Yeah. There's no separate dust dome. It's all molded in one piece. Very clever sort of manufacturing there. Yeah. The voice coil mounts directly to the back of the whole cone. They're really tough drivers. They'll really take a pounding. They're very, very good.
Well, good, because somebody just asked, how good are they for rock?
Celestion speakers love to rock.
Celestion, they make guitar speakers. They make electric guitar speakers, right?
They still do. They still do. Yep.
So do you want me to put them on? Do you want me to try them? I mean,
sure.
I can't put a lot of bass on them because of the surrounds, right?
The surrounds will be fine. They won't crack anymore. But what will happen is you'll have a mild air leak.
They're chuffing.
Yeah, you probably won't hear it to begin with. So I would play something subtle. And what you'll find, those have incredibly magical mid-range that's superior to the wooden ones.
Really? Because those were already amazing mid-range.
These are extra amazing.
I've never heard them. Yeah, I never heard a pair.
Yeah, I shouldn't have sold mine, but I wanted something new. So I sold mine, and that funded buying the Spendor Classic 2.3s.
All right. By wired. I got the by-wire cables. Okay. Any more questions? ¿Alguna más preguntas? Háganle preguntas. What current? Oh, you already answered the question about the 300B. Okay, so let me fix the camera. Let me not
give your viewers some native tongue, because they're probably bored of hearing my voice.
Ok, mis amigos, ahora voy a conectarlas a ver si funcionan, ok, así que no se vayan, quédense, vamos a ver qué pasa. Si tienen alguna pregunta, háganle la pregunta a Kevin. Para eso lo tenemos aquí. Okay, let me remove all the foam. This is very well packed. It's a lot of packing.
That's good because they're easily damaged. They really are easily damaged.
Actually, it's funny because they're exactly almost around the same size as the EPOS.
I'm afraid I would say Robin Marshall really quite blatantly copied Celestion when he did EPOS. It's probably going to be controversial, but there's a lot of people who think he copied the SL series.
So now, right off the bat, I'm going to have a problem with this. I'm going to have to use blue tack.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to sit well on those stands.
No, they're probably... Are your stands flat, or have you got little isolation feet?
Well, I could probably get some sorbotane sheets.
Yeah.
Oh, they look nice. Let me turn off the amp. These are Amazon special. They come already
by wired.
Yeah, already come by wired.
What cable do you normally use?
I have a straight wire, and I also have some from Chris Somovingo that he makes.
Right.
I like Cardas too, but I can't afford it. Have you ever had quads in your house?
57s, no. I've heard them loads of times, but they wouldn't work in my room. I can't get the width. They would be in the way of the door into the kitchen, so I don't think they're going to work.
Do you have a preference for which quads?
For nostalgic reasons, I'd probably say the 57s. The 63s, I mean, they were big when I first really got into loudspeakers. The quad boys often used the Celestion System 6000 subwoofers with ESL 63s.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a set of System 6000 subs. They're incredibly coherent. They're very fast. Just another clever design. They were Graham Banks' idea as well.
Okay, we're almost done.
Cool.
I like these connectors. They're nice. I like it better
Yeah.
than the Mitchells.
Yep, they're very good.
The Mitchell always comes undone.
Yep.
Okay, we're connected. I'll play a record. I'll play a record with oboe music.
Are you excited?
It's a decent amp for the speakers.
Definitely.
Actually, let me change the microphones. I have some better microphones.
Volume down a little bit. Sounds like they're working.
Any problems? They work. $300.
Brilliant.
Well, wait, let me change the mic again. Okay. So $300 plus what you're going to charge me. To sort out the bass drivers. We'll discuss that offline. I can certainly help you out. Just a bit about those loudspeakers. Their level of detail, particularly in the upper mid to HF area, is stunning, but their imaging is just phenomenal. They are very holographic. They really do disappear, but it's a shame you can't quickly go back to the SL6 SI, but what you'll detect is just such a lack of coloration. They are just so uncolored, so clean. Very, very good loudspeakers. Oddly, my favorite in all of the range is the original SL600. That's my favorite. They're very rolled off in the HF, yeah,
but you can play them really loud. You can really, I love them. I've always kept a pair of those.
And that's the one that came with the pair of woofers. I mean, didn't come with, but you could get as a system.
Yeah, which I've got. I was always waiting to have two matching power amps to run it properly, and I had two Meridian 557s, and rather than trying to set the System 6000 up properly, I started messing around with monoblocking and stuff, and it just sounded worse. So I just went back to one single amplifier and sold it and forgot all about the System 6000 until I'd sold it and thought, I've forgotten, because it's tucked away. It's out of sight, out of mind. I've had the thing for years and years, and you just forget about them. It's a terrible waste. It really is. I should. None of us should hoard stuff, because there's somebody out there that will really appreciate that and love it.
Yeah.
But some of it is just too hard to let go. So, incidentally, I've decided of the two, I'm selling my Harbeth. They're going. I'm going to keep.
Which model?
Compact 7 ES3s.
Oh wow! You'll get some good money for them, because people are crazy about Harbeth these days.
They are indeed. They're phenomenal on classical music, string quartet, something like that. Just spectacular. But I listen to a lot of different genres of music, and the Spendor were just better across the range, I thought. As are those. They'll play anything.
I love Spendors. And let me say something in Spanish. Y para aquellos que no conocen el canal de Kevin, él hace muchas comparaciones de bocinas inglesas. Él compara Spendors con Harbeth. I was just saying that I really love your demos where you compare speakers. They're great.
Yeah. That's the most fun thing to do there is, I think. You know, it's great to compare amplifiers or CD players or cartridges, turntables. It's great, and it's the same thing, but for me, I just prefer doing it with speakers.
How about comparing DAX?
DAX, oh, that's a nightmare. Although the atoll I did the other day was just phenomenal, brilliant DAC. But I did ask the question: should a DAC have a voice, or should it not have a voice? And the conclusion I drew was that atoll DAC did have a voice, but it was so pleasant, you just couldn't stop listening to it. It was great.
Yeah. Have you heard the Denafrips Pontus 2?
No, the Denafrips, that's a ladder resistor DAC, isn't it? No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. I was speaking to my friend today. Personally, my system is fairly neutral from the point of view of being able to review loudspeakers, which I'll openly admit doesn't make it the most musical setup, really. That's why I use something like the Spendor, because you get the musicality back out of the loudspeakers. So if I used your SL700s there, on my setup would be very cold sounding setup, but would be quite accurate and give me a good sense of what the loudspeakers were doing.
It would be the equivalent of when I play my horn. Sometimes I want a softer sound. Instead of using this violet wood bell, I'll use maple bell.
Yeah.
And so the speakers at the very end is the sound that contributes, you know.
That's right. I mean, changing anything on a hi-fi setup is really tuning the tonality of the entire system. And for me, some people don't agree with me, but for me, the easiest and quickest and most impactful way you can do that is to change the loudspeakers.
They asked a question. The first part of the question was, I don't mean to hog the chat, but what are the genuine successors to Classic's LS3.5, considering that there's no original drivers anymore, that is?
There are. So Falcon Acoustics. Okay, the drive units for the original LS3.5A were made by Kev, but they were designed by Malcolm Jones. Malcolm Jones started Falcon Acoustics, which is now owned by Jerry Bloomfield, and Malcolm Jones remade the B110 T27 for Falcon Acoustics to release brand new LS3.5As. You can get totally in spec B110s from Falcon Acoustics, 15-ohm ones.
I've never heard them. They're not, they are expensive. I was thinking about the Chinese knockoffs. No, the Falcon Acoustics are expensive.
Sound Artist did if you want something that's absolutely true to the very letter of the BBC, it's the Falcon Acoustics LS3.5A. Absolutely to the letter.
Really?
If you want something that sounds good, Graham Audio sound good, Sterling Broadcast sound good, the new Rogers sound good, but none of them can claim to be as faithful to the original design, because Malcolm Jones rebuilt the drive units, and they're brilliant. They're stunning, the Falcon Acoustics. I'm hoping to do an enormous LS3.5A shootout soon, but it's very hard to collate lots of different versions. And I owe a big debt to a couple of people because they're letting me borrow their pair, because I haven't got them. I haven't got a specific one. So I might do that after I come back off holiday. So it may be in September, I'll have a good go at a big LS3.5A shootout. Maybe including the P3 ESR from Harbeth, because people keep asking me about that.
That was going to be my next question. How bastardized are they, the P3 SE?
I wouldn't say that bastardized.
How far from the LS3, you know? 5?
A good way. Alan Shaw, using that radial cone technology, has built his interpretation of that mini monitor, similar to how Stuart Tyler, did like the ProAct tablets. It's their take on that size mini monitor. So the P3 ESR is not an LS3.5A, but it draws its lineage from that. It's the same as the SHL5 isn't an LS3.6, but it draws its heritage from that. It's Alan Shaw's interpretation of those speakers. To say whether they're better or not is totally up to the individual. You know, it's very subjective. But a lot of people have asked me, so I know somebody who's got P3 ESR He's going to let me borrow them. I've got a couple of pairs of LS35As. Some other friends have got them. We're going to put them all together and try and do the lot.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of work.
I wish I could be there, but yeah, we'll enjoy it in your channel.
Thanks.
Okay, well, Kevin, it's been about an hour and a half. I don't want to take any more of your time. I know it's about 9 o'clock there, a little bit late. So...
yeah, that's absolutely fine. I really, really have enjoyed being on it. Thank you for having me on here.
Thanks so much for being here and holding my hand while I open this package. They're only there for cosmetic reasons, the stand. So later tonight, I'll set them up closer to the wall and, you know, a little wider apart and see how.
Yeah. SLs don't mind being too close to a back wall, but they don't like side walls.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I used to have my equipment, electronics behind the speakers, but I moved it out thinking that I would probably need a little more.
Yeah. I should move mine really. The trouble with all of us, it's not
space.
Always easy. Yeah, space. Yeah.
Even though this is a dedicated space, I'm still running out of space.
You've run out of dedicated space.
Yeah. I'm still running out of space.
Brilliant.
But anyway, thanks so much for your time and looking forward to more collabs. And
you're welcome.
I will talk to you about shipping the woofers out to you.
Well, we can do this differently, to be honest with you. I could probably find some very good condition units that would just work straight in there. Also, there is a way I could help you repair those ones that isn't that difficult, and they will work properly. They'll be sealed.
Applying something to the driver. Okay, yeah. I make reeds. I make onboard reeds, so I can work in small spaces.
Yep. Yeah. We'll do that. That will get them working as near as damn it, and then I'll work on providing you with something that will make them A1 again.
Fantastic.
And I'll send this consolation.
you rubbing it on my nose now that I don't have the AC.
Honestly, they're still very special. They are very special.
Yeah, they sounded pretty good right now when I play them.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more. What about the crossovers? Are the crossovers going to be out of spec? Do I need to replace caps or?
They're polycaps, so they don't really wander out of spec. They have what are called auto transformers made by Sauter, which is a world famous transformer manufacturer. So you're not really going to have any issues there. If you do take them apart, you'll find the HF circuit and the LF circuit is completely separate. There's 2 circuit boards inside each one, and very, very nice crossover components in there. There's no issues with those.
Did you make some of those? Maybe did you make my speakers, or you came in a little bit later? You said
no. There's no. I didn't. No, that I wouldn't have got onto those. I possibly did a lot. Well, I know I did a lot of 100s and 300s, and I know I did loads of Celestion 3s, 5s. But SL series, I remember seeing them there, obviously, but I don't remember doing any of the crossovers. They were saved for the best people on the line, which usually were women. The tweeting department was nearly all women. They were very good at winding the coils and stuff.
Oh, it's always the case. I think quads were also made by, the panels were made by women.
Yep. I think for many years the doping done on KEF drive units was the same woman. It was her job for like 20 something years.
She was like a legend. She was a legend.
Yeah.
So what if somebody's watching this video and they got all excited about Celestion and they want to go on eBay? I mean, what sort of speaker could they get that's an affordable model, that's maybe a newer model, if they cannot get these Celestions, I mean, the 700s? Is there something like the ones that you made that you recommend?
So, sort of ones that are very good that aren't overpriced would be the DL4 Series 2. The Celestion 3 and 5, which were designed by my friend Martin Roberts. any of the A series, if you can find them, particularly the A Compact, is a shockingly good, very little loudspeaker. You know, anybody's welcome to find me on Ditton Works Facebook page. I often get sent messages from all over the world and try and help these people as best I can, because there have been instances of the wrong information online or no information online. And this is why I really did as best I could to make the Celestion Facebook page a community of like-minded people with the proper group experts. So the Celestion Facebook page actually has some of the designers, some of the engineers, some of the quality control people, one of the technical directors. So we're pretty unique that we've got those people there.
That's the page on Facebook where I posted my review of the Lintons, and you
It is
forgave
indeed.
me. And you forgave me for it.
I let it go once.
Well, I'll be sure to collaborate more that I know that this is you people.
If you post those on the Facebook page, there people will go wild. There's a big following for Celestion's SL700s.
I'll do it right now. In fact,
Yeah.
I'll do a little short on my YouTube channel.
Sure.
Some music, some gentle music. I don't want to abuse them.
No, it's a good group. I was actually handed that by Howard Popek, who he's admin on loads and loads and loads.
I know his name.
Yeah, and he generously handed that Facebook group over to me, and I just went on a quest to find the right people to help me run it. And thankfully, we've got a really good collection. Like I said, we've got some quality control guys. My friend Matt McNulty, he was one of the QC guys. Neil Terry, he's another quality control guy. Martin Roberts, he designed the Celestion 300. So there's a great collection of people on there.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll be sure to also post this interview in my other channel, my experimental channel.
Yeah.
That's it, in English. So maybe people will see there too.
Which is the one I watched with the Battle for Britain, which I loved. I loved that video. I thought it was brilliant.
I have to make more. Yes, I have to put more. Now it's actually over 500 subscribers. I can't believe it. It was an experiment. I must keep going.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kevin, I'll let you go. I will be in touch. And thanks everyone. Gracias a todos por estar aquí con Kevin. No olviden suscribirse al canal de Ditton Works. Y hasta pronto.
Thank you.